On to our conversation for the next 2 hours. Professor Prof Wajackoyah, the leader of the Roots Party, is our guest. Prof, good morning.
Morning, Chief.
How are you doing?
Very fine. Yourself?
Very well, thank you. Good to see you. Good to see that you are still energetic.
Very, in fact, stronger than I was before.
Stronger than you were before?
Yes.
What's the secret?
I don't eat meat. I don't.
You don't eat meat?
Yes, I don't drink or take alcohol. I don't womanize. I'm just a strong guy, and I'm very spiritual in what I do.
Right.
I meditate a lot with Hare Krishna. First of all, I should have sent my message of condolences to the Aga Khan community for the loss of His Holiness, whom I knew personally. I met him several times in Canada, and for what the Aga Khan community has done for me in the past. So I'm sorry, I've been here since he passed. But being strong is having some kind of consciousness. Once you have the Eastern mantra, I'm not saying the Buddhist mantra, but Asian kind of philosophy, where you upgrade your intelligence by dividing yourself into two categories, the material septism and the spiritual septism. Most of you only look at me from the material perception or perspective, but my life or my living is higher than what people see. God will not allow you to see me in my spiritual emblem. You only see me here as a bank smoker, a tired person, a madman, but I'm higher in my thinking.
Operating on a different spiritual plane.
Interesting.
Getting into that conversation shortly, but first, Janet will give you the day's quote. Listen to the quote and context behind it, and let's see whether you relate.
Today's is pretty simple, but I think it's strong in who said it, because today is the Day of the African Child. It's marked every year on the 16th of June, and this was as a result of the Soweto uprising and the unfortunate death of Hector Peterson. And his sister, a few years ago, said, "Any ordinary person can change people's lives." The quote again is, "Any ordinary person can change people's lives." Important to note that the African Union officially recognized and declared December 16th as the Day of the African Child in 1991. And
June
that's
16th.
Yeah, June 16th, right? So again, that quote is by Antoinette Toto Sithole, sister of Hector Peterson. Any ordinary person can change people's lives. Your reflections, Professor, on the Day of the African Child, Soweto uprising, and that quote.
Before I say or comment, I think we should also have the smoking day.
Day of smoking?
The day of smoking.
Okay. Doesn't exist right now?
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
Hemp smoking, which is also very spiritual.
Okay.
Now that quote reflects what I've read in the Bhagavad Gita, which is a Hindu kind of
spiritual text.
Yes, which has been alive for almost 600 years. I can reflect that on Krishna. When Krishna was sitting on a leaf on water, floating and playing a flute, that in itself goes into what we call the spiritual mantra. Krishna is reminding us of how beautiful a baby can be, and once a baby is born, a baby does not want to go back to the mother's womb. A baby needs love, care, attention. And that's what I think.
Okay. Right. Interpretations.
It's a deep into it.
It is.
Yeah.
There's a day of
vaping.
Of vaping, but I think yours is specifically for hemp.
Specifically hemp smoking.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Not vaping at the alternatives to cigarettes.
Right.
Prof, you've seen what has happened in the last couple of days,
Definitely.
and this is a public outcry and reaction to the arrests and death of Albert Ojwang in police custody. Investigations are ongoing. Parliament has summoned the leadership of the National Police Service to come and respond to this particular issue. Where you stand as a leader of the Roots Party and the party itself, what do you say about what's going on here?
First of all, thank you very much. In fact, when the issue came up, I was the first one to be called by TV47, and I said what I said. But notwithstanding that, I would first of all remove Kanja, the Inspector General of Police, from blame. Secondly, I've been a police officer for so many years. When as a police constable, I was posted to Central Police Station, where I started as sales sentry. So I understand the dynamics in that station very well. But the most fundamental principle here is an accuser cannot become the judge, in which case the Deputy Inspector General of Police should have stepped aside immediately. And if he hasn't stepped aside up to now, then I would ask the international community, and I'm going to be very extraneous in what I'm going to say, to ban anything to do with, to impose embargo on his travel and those of his children. And I'm sounding this with very great enthusiasm to the British and the EU, as well as the Americans. I'm personally going to write a letter. I'm not saying he has killed. I don't have evidence to that. But all fingers are pointing at him. And this shows the inefficiency in Ruto's government. There's some kind of primitive and logistic agenda where everybody appointed by Ruto, especially and particularly this particular man, who stays in a myth. You can see his body language on that material day. He was acting as if he was the one who had strangled this boy. I could read that from the spiritual perception. I'm not saying he did. But if at all they're pointing at him, then something's wrong. And secondly, those people who have been arrested should be released henceforth.
Who?
The culprits. Yes, if Lagat has not stepped aside, the OCS who is believed to have been in a drinking place in Wilson Airport at that particular time, and there are CCTV indications that he was actually not at the station, they should have that woman who was with him to write a statement to confirm where he was at that particular time, the employees of that particular pub in Wilson Airport. And once that is raised, that's fine. Not unless he came back to the station to erase or to help into erasing the CCTV footages, then he should be charged as an accomplice. But the person to step aside is actually Deputy Inspector General of Police, and he should step aside immediately. Otherwise, I am going to conduct the European Union, because I practiced law in the UK and EU for many years. I'm going to personally write to the congressmen in the United States to make sure that this man does not step outside the country unless he steps down and then is vindicated.
Right. Prof, we've had this conversation before, and sometimes it seems that we are looking to the West to sort of do the things that we can't. How do we hold him accountable here? Because, you know, travel bans and denial of entry is well and good, but if he can operate in Kenya still as a free man, then you see, justice hasn't been served.
I've just concluded my PhD in criminal justice and public policy. This is my second PhD, and I'm graduating. I'm going to Tampa, Florida, to graduate on 11th and 12th. And
congratulations.
Thank you. And I've sat on that research for 6.5 years, having external and internal research professors. I've researched deeply. The criminal justice system in this country is below average. It doesn't work. It will never work unless probably somebody of the like-minded personality like myself or any other person takes over. Why would we go to the West now? I think it works because the system here does not work unless we go and borrow leave from Burkina Faso. If we say that we are going to follow into a criminal justice system, then it's just a laughingstock. Look at what IPOA is doing. They have not even issued. They have not asked this man to step aside, since he has refused. The president has not addressed the nation. The Minister for Internal Security, of course, was called, but he has no experience. Murkomen is the most inefficient cabinet secretary we have ever seen. If I was Murkomen, I would have asked this man to step aside, or if anything, I would step aside until I restore public confidence.
Okay. Prof, I just want to, I know very soon we'll come into sort of like politics and party politics and get your vision of what you hope to achieve. But still, as we wind up on this conversation about everything that's happening in our justice system or lack thereof, as somebody who was in the system, you've talked about, you know, you're a police officer, you've talked about the fact that you have this incredible, you know, PhD now. How can we completely transform the rot that's happening with our state agencies, with our security agencies? I know you've said it'll take somebody like you or like-minded to shift the criminal justice system, but within the police, within the security, there just seems to be rot. I think that's the only word I can come up with. What will it take to overhaul that?
I think, in my opinion, when I take over, and let me start from that particular point, I'll go back to the people. And I will have to draw examples from where things have worked. I'll go back to the people and I'll ask the people to relook and rethink and have a conversation with them as to what is best suited for our country. This has happened before during Kenyatta One administration. We didn't have problems. We can probably go back to that particular Pan-Africanism and look at what Nyerere's blueprint was, Kwame Nkrumah, and the first Kenyatta, even though we didn't benefit a lot in terms of criminal justice during Kenyatta One's administration. But we can also look into the Kibaki era. And then we can look at what is happening around the world so that we can upgrade and update our thinking. I cannot say that as a person, I'm going to impose my thinking on the people of this nation. People already know what they want. They already know how to do it. But the systems have saturated them, they have compressed them on the ground, and there's no way out. Look at the young people today. Why are the young people coming out in big numbers on the streets? What are the young people doing? They have already known what happens outside. But now when you come to the system, you can see that the very bottom of the IQ, the likes of people I do not want to mention, are the people who purport to give direction to our future. People are so primitive, very illiterate. Some of them are standard 6 dropouts. If you don't listen to them, they bring the police to harass you. That one has to end.
It appears to be structural though, Prof, right?
Yes.
Institutional, but the Constitution attempted to address that by creating structures, creating institutions, and even starting by saying, let us reform our police force into a police service. Let us form a commission that is going to first vet all police officers up to where we are. Has that worked, and why has it?
It will not work.
Why not?
Let us look at the Roots Party blueprint on policing. We had a 3-tier system. One was the local system, tier system, the county tier system, the state tier system, because we are going to look into states, create about 8 states and have counties operate from states, and the federal tier system, whereby local policing should start from the bottom, from the very low. When an officer is trained from a police system within his region, just like we do in the, just like it's done in the US, Pakistan in particular, and India, where a police officer is trained and the first place to go to serve is his own community, so that he can, the community can actually, he can actually study the culture, know the people, know how to behave, how to integrate the traditional values of his people. And then from there, he can now be upgraded to the county, then to the state, then to the federal. That will take time, 50 years after my death probably. But that gradually will transform the mindset of a police officer, rather than just getting one from University of Nairobi, Kiganjo, Kenya Police College, or GSU, and you're trained to maim, to kill. The local, the usual traditional methods of training that were left with the colonial legacies. You arrest, beat up, and kill and take money from him. That mentality has to be saturated so that we come up with a formula which is conducive to our cultural values. In India, we have 2 systems of the police. We have the Harijans and the untouchables. The touchables and the untouchables. So if you are coming from a state which has accepted to be what it is because of their cultural diversity and identity, then you serve your people knowing who you are. Then once you serve and reach a particular dimension, then you are upgraded. Secondly, empowerment of the police at training level. where police officers should be trained in many ways. They should train about equity, they should be trained about human rights, and they should also be given incentives during that particular time, just like what happened in Zambia. When Chiluba took over, Chiluba brought in a new blueprint in Zambia, and Zambia police now, Zambia and Botswana, police officers from Botswana, they work with love to the community because they have been given incentives in education, given incentives in housing, given incentives to make them operate, to operationalize the police standards. But here, a police officer comes in from Kiganjo, he's stuffed up in a small house, like during my time, we were 8 in a room at Central Police Station, and the sergeant was meant to take the bedroom. We have one toilet, we have one bathroom, and we have passiers everywhere. You go to work when you know that you are already saturated by the conditions and the environment in which you are living. Right. How do you expect a police officer to be happy?
To perform.
Yes. Must we be blaming them also?
Right.
No, let us do what we can do to make police officers be realized as human beings, just like we do in UK and US.
How do we, just as we wrap up on that, how do we decolonize our police force? Because Janu's quote is from 1976,
yes.
right?
It was done a few years ago, but it was because of what happened in 1976,
right? And I was thinking of what happened to the schoolgirls and the fact that school-going children were again attacked and of course hit with live bullets, causing death. You're thinking you can thread that 20, 30 years later, it's still happening. There's clearly some colonial elements left within our police force. How do we remove them?
Yeah, it's a matter of opening up schools and proper content-based curriculum that could actually teach our children on the role of each and everybody in society and what they have to participate in. Teach our children about corruption, teach our children about simple methods in society, queuing when you want to go into a public environment. When you are in a public place, you want to go into a bus, you queue. You want to go into a place to eat, you queue. You see a police officer doing something wrong, you approach him and tell him, anyway, sorry, you're doing wrong. Or even cook and give the police in the community, including community policing. In India, police officers are actually fed by community programs. If you go to work in an environment, you're given food, eat, some of them are given gifts. That kind of method, it sinks in slowly and it removes demonization from the police mentality.
Collaborative community policing as opposed to us versus them. Okay.
I wonder if we can get there. I think there's such a radical need to, but I see Prof's point, it needs to be community. I need to see you as you're part of my community. Right. And therefore, even if you've done something wrong, I can hold you accountable, but as somebody in my community. But right now, it is very us versus them. Do you all think it's something we can, do you think it's too little too late, or do you feel like, no,
it's never too little too late.
Never too late.
I think we just have to be radical about it, the way we said, and to want it bad enough. And everybody has to want it, both parties. It has to be people want it, it has to be the police want it, it has to be the state wants it. Otherwise, it'll just be, pushes and pushes, but never any progress.
Right.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Prof, you are the leader of Roots Party.
Yes, I am.
You were a presidential candidate in the last election. After the election results were announced, we saw you gravitating towards the Azimio side, which you had not joined during the election. We want to understand what was happening then and where you are at right now. But first, we take a break, and then we come back and continue our conversation. Professor Prof Wajackoyah, Roots Party leader, is our guest today. We are discussing politics. We're discussing his political party as well, his alliances, who he's aligning with or not, and how come, and whether he intends to be in the next presidential race. Keep it here for that. Fixing the Nation, one conversation at a time. Back in a moment.
Zero 112 500 400. Before I go on, Prof, what is your part in fixing the nation? Because I created one for you, but truly, what is your part in fixing the nation?
Wow, that's a difficult one. Should I say that we need just to concentrate our minds together and then work hard and contribute in whichever way, rather than apportioning blame on people. Yet we ourselves can rectify the situation.
Wow, it's on all of us. I know Eric asked you a critical question just before the break. Just want to sample some feedback online from what people are saying on YouTube. Samuel Mashari is saying, could Professor please give us a solution for the snake invasion? Because we just read that story moments ago, and I think he's alluding to some of what you'd mentioned before, earlier on, when you had begun to vie years ago. Tibbs Muge, Professor Wajackoyah has seen the void and come out intact. So that's his observation. Charles Ndungo, all over the country, senior people are walking scot-free, having been mentioned in crimes. With the president and his type as in leadership, justice for Ojwang and others might be a tall order. We have to hope for the best, Charles. We can only push and see how we can push towards justice. But a lot of you are sending us some of your feedback. Please do it across our digital platforms. You can also call in and just talk to us as we continue with this conversation with Professor Wajackoyah.
Yeah, right, Prof. So, where do you lie right now? Are you with your Azimio brothers and sisters? Have you moved over with Raila to support Kenya Kwanza?
First of all, thank you very much for that question. And let me make it very clear. Let me clarify it. The Azimio agreements were made before the elections. They had a candidate, I was a candidate, Ruth was a candidate, Mwaure was a candidate. But after the election, and I'm told I got 2.8 million votes, not the saturated theft that you saw. I can verify my information through certain embassies that are friendly to me. Then I saw the country going south, and then I met James Orengo. James Agro Orengo is my friend for the last 45 years. And we spoke. Then I also met Mama Ida Odinga by that particular time. And they requested me to join the Azimio Brigade. I voluntarily joined the brigade. And then what we stood for at that particular time is what I liked most. But then after that, when part of them joined, the so-called, and I mean the so-called broad-based, I decided to step backwards. I took a step back. And then also my brothers who are with us, when they took the left wing from the center, later on joined by Gachagua, I also decided to look at them, and I remained to be who I am, because none of these groups were able to reach out to me to ask me to have a conference with them or a meeting with them so that we could actually implore capacity building in terms of policies, so that we could put our policies together and see how we're going to fuse in for the benefit of the common Mwananchi. There was none like that.
So had they approached you, would you have joined the
Yes, I could have sat. I'm not joining Ruto. I'm talking of Gachagua's team.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the Ruto team, just forget, I'm not, and I don't think whether I can, unless they come to terms with what some of us want.
Right.
There would be nothing wrong with talking to them if they came out openly, notoriously, publicly with public participation, that we sit together. Ruth's party agenda is here, Kalonzo's party agenda is here, and then your agenda. Can they be fusible? Can they be fused? Can we have public kind of conversation? None of them did.
Okay.
The Gachagua team, the Ruto team, and the Raila team. I don't know whether I'm the odd man out of this, because they categorize me as a very low class. Even during the Azimio Brigade, they looked at me as an inferior, and I can say that without any fear. They did not want to listen to me, so I was like a spectator following, and that's why we came up with this issue of Mandamano, of which Raila backed me in that particular group. But none of them can sit down with people like me to put an agenda together and say, now this is what we need to follow. And unless they do that, I'm not going to join them.
Why do you think they look down on you like that?
Yeah, maybe some of them, they think I'm a madman. I wear Kitambaa, without knowing that this is a symbol of nationalism, which was worn by Menelik II. You can Google Menelik in Ethiopia when he refused and resisted the Italian invasion. Right. And he said, I will never, ever remove this until the Italians go out. Maybe that's why the African Americans also wore this on the warships. When they were, any of them died, before throwing him in the sea, they would tear their line and wear it until, and to remind them of who survived and what have you. And that's why even you see the American basketballers wear this for times of victory. I'm married to an African American, and I learned a lot of this. So I put on this as a mean of resistance. And then they were like staying in their colonial cocoon, unless you wear a suit and look nice and steal from the public and marry a lot of concubines and involve yourself in corruption. And I'm not saying all of them. I said no. Mahatma Gandhi went to Gray's Inn. When he went to London to study law, to become a barrister, he went to Gray's Inn, of which when I was studying in UK, I also went to Gray's Inn, and I saw what was happening. So it was not the wearing. And they categorized me as a bank smoker. They categorized me as a person who cannot think. They looked at me as a person who has never been a politician in this country or hold any kind of public office, and they were sidelining me.
And yet you say that they approached you to join them?
When they approach me and we speak sensibly, yes, we can talk.
No. At the point when you say that, you know, Orengo, Mama Aida, and the others, and you were speaking to them, and you decided to join Azimio post-election.
Yes.
Why did you decide to join them?
I did not join Azimio. I went in as a friend.
At this point, as you're joining them as a friend.
Yes.
Why were you joining them as a friend?
Yeah, because I saw some sense. I saw some sense in what they were doing. Life was becoming unbearable to the Kenyan citizens. Things were going south. Kids were being arrested. People were just being thrown in jail. The courts were not the courts at that particular time and in this particular time were not doing their duty as servants of the people in terms of dispensing criminal justice, and things were just going south. The financial bill had its own mayhem. People like Gachagua by then were intimidating and threatening Kenyans and going to the offices very early in the morning. So we couldn't stand that. Of course, now I can soften up on Gachagua, but still have a lot of questions.
But would you, if they still came to you today and said, you know, there's still time for us to build...
we can talk.
You can talk.
Definitely, yes.
Okay, because I was going to say, right now, are you going it alone? Are you essentially...
Yes, I am on my own.
You're on your own.
And I have Roots Party agenda.
Okay.
And unless somebody comes in to discuss with me about this agenda, then why would I join? Recently, the Ruto group offered me lots of money. Some governors spoke with me to join as a cabinet secretary. And then somebody told me, no, we shall give you 150 acres in Narok, around Narok, or just come, we shall send you a helicopter. And I'm like, hell no. Who are you? Why? Why can't Ruto himself pick up a phone and call
you strategically?
And then say, look, Professor, can we meet and can we discuss about the issues affecting this country? Yes, I will go. I will not take tea because I don't know what will be in that tea, but we shall meet.
Okay, because Kenya's politics it's coalition heavy, so I'm just trying to find out how you would strategically navigate that if you're going it alone against...
We can do, our party member, NEC, have agreed that there's nothing wrong with joining a coalition so long as we agree. But I always believe in post-election coalitions, just like what happens in Italy and India. I do not want to do a pre-election coalition. Then you sign in, they appoint you a cabinet secretary and drop you tomorrow. You are done.
So you just become... I'm going back into the people that you would be willing to sit down with and have a conversation with are the same people that you're saying at some point they treat you as a junior. If they called you for a negotiation today, what is it that you would do to change that narrative and how they treat you?
We shall have an alliance on the table. We shall have our lawyers and other Kenyans, the clergy, the local mwananchi, and sit down and see what they have to say. You know, politics is not permanent. You cannot take a permanent enmity to... Look at what happened in the US when they abuse each other, and after winning, one congratulates the other for the national building. When I ran for Member of Parliament for Tottenham in London after Barney Grant's death, I had to step down because I could not fulfill whatever. And we had a conversation with David Lammy, who is the current MP for Tottenham, and I stepped down and he took over. Maybe I would have become a minister in Tony Blair's government. So we have had these experiences from the beginning. Right. We can always talk.
I could be wrong, Prof, but I feel like you've become more amiable and agreeable over time to Kenyan politics. Yeah? Has the hardline stance shifted? If so, why? And is that sort of a betrayal of the core of George Wajackoyah?
Well, I don't know what the word hardline means or extremist means, but
no,
people did not.
Extremist.
No, I'm just saying. Yeah, people did not understand me at all. People looked at me as that punk smoker. Yes, they never saw me smoke it in public, but if it comes, maybe. People did not want to understand because I was talking about snakes. I was talking about bangi. I was talking about changing Nairobi, shifting Nairobi, the capital city, to Isiolo. I was talking about working for 4 days a week. I was talking, which is actually reality. So people looked at that and they said, this is an extremist, this is a hardline. No. They didn't understand. But now, as we sit here, is in this city sinking.
It is. Sorry, but just to correct, I was asking from your agreeability with the political class, not
I get you.
Not your policies.
In fact, I was coming to that.
Yes.
It's only that there was we and the phenomenon, the class diversity. I've been in the West, and I've been a chokora in this town. I was born in a very poor environment. I know this town and I grew up in Hare Krishna. The Asian community brought me up. I was in jail, in detention, following Dr. Oko's death. I went into exile. I was a grave digger. I've seen it all. And the way I see things probably is what betrays me, or is what makes people think that I'm radical. I am not radical. But if that is the definition, then yes, I accept. So the way I looked at things is not the way I look at things today, and it's not the way I look at things tomorrow. But the way things stand, I think I'll maintain my stand.
I wanted to ask, and I think I know we will still talk a little bit more about Roots Party and how you would run things differently. But just going back to what you said about being misunderstood, people saying, yes, Professor Wajackoyah has what they would term unconventional views, for example. That aside, what do you think is the most misunderstood thing about your vision for this country?
It's just because there is two sides of me, as I said before. There is the material side, and there is the spiritual side. And 90% of the people I engage with look at me from the material side. And I'll give you an example of what I did recently. Recently, there was a case involving Yeswa Tongareni. And then this man was being condemned by politicians, not by the people whom he was preaching to or by the local citizens. So I remember somebody like Didmas Baraza, the MP for Kiminini, coming up and making a very serious utterance that this man is an evil man, he should be locked up. And the man was actually arrested and locked up. So I was like, where do we draw the line here? I had to take a flight from here to Kisumu, hired an SUV from Kisumu to Bungoma, went to court to see this man. I wanted to know how evil he was, now that the political system had actually classified him as evil. And the man had been charged with money laundering. The man had been charged with a man of immoral turpitude, the man who cannot stand, the man who is defiling and defaming God, by the very politicians who had killed people and they were scotch-free because of the system. So my reaction, and that's why I'm coming to your question, was like, let me go and see who this man is. So when I went to the cells and I saw him, such a huge man, hair and what have you, and he was talking of things like, he was saying that his wealth is in his beard. Yes, I have a beard. His wealth is in his hair. He had big hair. As I was asking him questions, and I thought he was probably insane, or I was insane. But what triggered me is that the police had gone to his home with him the previous day to actually check on how much money he had laundered in his church. So they tore his mattress, which was made out of grass. They only removed grass. And then they went to the altar and banged this altar, broke that piece of altar. Wakapata nyanya sita na vitungu mbili and 250 shillings. So we went to court and I was like, look, come on, if this is the kind of justice you want in this country, so it be. So I asked the magistrate, in my PO, preliminary objections, that if this man is not Jesus, show me one.
Show me Jesus.
Yeah. And then we went on research, and he came back and said the prosecution had not proved this case, so they released that. So from that, I give that to probably understand me. There are things that trigger me. There's a woman who had a baby, a dead baby in Pangani police station. And I went there to see the OCS. Then I met, the OCS was not in, but this woman was sitting in the report office. And then there was a lot of flies. And she was carrying something like this. And I'm like, wait a minute. What is going on? The cell center will not tell me anything. So I left. When I came back lunchtime, the same woman was there with that baby, with the flies marauding around that baby. It's when I was told that there was no police vehicle to take that baby to the mortuary. And you can imagine a woman, I think you are, of course you are, with a baby who has died, miscarriage, with the blood and the health condition. It was pathetic. So I had to put the woman in my Volkswagen. By that time I was having a little Beetle, and took her to the mortuary. Something that somebody will not do. So there are those things that make people not understand me. But there are those that I teach at the university. There are those that are actually in legal profession, who listen to me in a classroom, who listen to my court debates. Those ones' views are different. But when it comes now to the politicians and religious leaders, they're like, oh no. I remember Apostle Nganga saying, we lazima akufe mwaka hii. Of course now, how many years have we finished? Yeah, we are kufe, we ni shetani. So you blame me without listening to me, without knowing that what I was talking to, or talking about was the reality.
So you're really misunderstood by many, right?
By many.
And when it comes to politics, people need to understand you so they can follow you. So you bring to the table the following, right? So it's either you have resources in politics in Kenya, or you have a following of people who support you. So you can go with them and have a negotiation at the table. You bring none of those two, Prof.
My friend, can we just go outside this building?
I'm looking at IEBC results. In the last election, 61,969 votes.
Good. It was 2.8 million.
Let's even go with 2.8 million. The winner had 7.1 million.
Very good.
The second one had 6.9 million.
Excellent.
Okay?
Yes.
Officially, Professor Prof Wajackoyah had 61,969 votes.
Now,
you don't have the numbers.
Cleophas Malala, who was involved in the election, just talked of rigging. Ricky G has just spoken of how they rigged the election. So will you actually look at that and believe it? Now, secondly, coming to what you said, having a number of followers, can we just go out Nation Center and you see that you'll not even have a place to move to? I have a class and cluster of followers in this country, and that's why the system is afraid of me. Trust me, I was in Bungoma, in Malava for the first time on Friday. Have you seen those pictures? Have you seen that the whole place closed? So that's not an issue. That's not an issue of bringing people on the table or not bringing people on the table. That kind of politics is what I'm trying to run away with. That kind of classification and tribalism, meandering, is what political meandering is what I'm coming out from. That now you're a Kikuyu, you have to colonize the Kikuyu territory and bring in Kikuyu people so that you sit on the table. The table issue was started by Gachagua. Initially, there was no table issue. If I have bad manners, let me not join any of those people if that's the philosophy they have. We need one Kenya.
So what's your political base?
My political base?
Yeah, who would you say that, if
right
I
now,
sit back, this is the profile of the Wajackoyah voter?
I think you as a journalist, you need to do your own research, because I will be blowing my own trumpet by saying, oh, these are the people who follow me, or these are not. Because right now even religious leaders are calling me. The Anglican Church has recognized me. They are now having a conversation with me, and they're asking me, why did you have to come up with this? And they said, no, it was hemp, but for me to make them understand, I had to come in the language of Bangi. And Bangi is hemp, but now when you go to scientific description of hemp, you'll find out that the Bangi, the leaves are the ones known as Bangi, and that's what people know. So I had actually to chirograph some kind of a caricature, to make myself into a caricature, to be misunderstood first before I became understood. And you can see what Gandhi did. Gandhi had 5 principles. He said at first, they will do what? They will spit on you and despise you. Secondly, they will look at you. Thirdly, they will sit down. Fourthly, they will listen to you. And fifthly, they will join you. I'm not even on stage 3.
You're still on stage 1 and 2.
Yes.
So I'll get back to my question. What is your political base?
My political
We'll do
base,
our research, okay?
Yes.
Yeah, the challenge is journalists.
I think instead of theorizing or just speaking, let's go. But I have to warn you to put a footnote that you must be having people to guide you. Let's just go outside on Tomboya right now for 2 minutes and walk around and then come back and see whether then maybe you can make your own informed decision. But I cannot tell you because I don't know who they will be, whether they will be old, young, or we go to Nyamakima. Maybe you'll get it much better.
So you have your base. You're basically saying, I have influence, I have the numbers.
Not that I have influence, but people just follow.
Why do people follow you? I want us to speak specifically to issues. I had asked previously about vision for Kenya. They're following you because you want to do what for the people of Kenya?
Now, my manifesto. You have it, I think. You must have a copy because you knew very well that I was coming. You know very well that I have a party. And please, if you did your research, just start reading for me from first to, then I'll explain. In case you don't, then I will. Do you have it?
Your manifesto is one thing. Your vision.
But I'm coming to the vision and mission,
is a different thing.
which is pegged on my manifesto. What is my vision? Then let's look at my manifesto and then let's visualize what my mission and vision is.
What are the issues, though? Yeah.
The issues.
Yeah.
Right.
What
Now
if you were to break down Kenya's most urgent, pressing issue? Give us 2. What would they be?
Number one is the economy. Number 2 is logistics, administrative-wise. Number 3 is planning. Number 4 is general, education, employment, gender issues, and what have you. Now we'll start with the economy. Kenya is not big enough. It's not bigger than Texas. Texas is a nation which has a governor. Texas is very rich in terms of oil production in the United States. Texas is very advanced from the days of federalism, because I also teach law in the United States where I practice. But if you look at Kenya, Kenya is very little to have 47 counties. The naturalization of our resources and poor planning is what has led to what you are talking about, the governor of Wajir, trying to look into simple things that he could have solved himself. Now, Roots Party looks at Kenya in the following way. Number one, we have to regionalize this country and probably ask Kenyans whether Majimboism can work from the inception of the late Ronald Ngala, Masinde Muliro, and others who are there by that particular time. Now, if you go back to regions, we can actually come up, and this is our policy in Roots Party, we can diversify those regions into states within the country. Either we call them states or we call them Jimbo, and then we have counties within the states. Now, let me break that down.
Prof, is it possible to break that down in just a few moments? We are going into a break, but we really want to understand that breakdown.
Okay.
So just hold your thoughts a little bit. We are obviously in studio with Professor Wajackoyah, talking about politics, talking about his ambitions to vie, and what he wants to do for the people of Kenya. What issues are they facing? How does he seek to address that? You can speak to us as well across our digital platforms. You can call us. You can send us your messages. We'll be back. It's coming up to 8 a.m. We'll be right back on Fixing the Nation.
Our conversation continues with the leader of the Roots Party, Professor George Wajackoyah, on political alliances, formations, and what ails Kenya and the solutions for Kenya going forward. Some of the comments that are coming in on our social media. On YouTube, Abdi Osman says, the last hour felt like a personal PR session for the Prof. Many I deeds, which you're grateful for, by the way, but less of how to change the current situation, the wheeze. Kimani Gashoke, good morning. Wajackoyah, how are we supposed to trust you? You're misunderstood, yes. But the real issue is the trust deficit with all politicians. What makes you different? Jeremy, does Prof feel that the votes that he gained in 2022 general election was a reflection of the
I know. I saw the end of that as well.
Just
but we can stick to the first two. I think they're credible questions.
Yeah, Sam also says, if there are no friends or enemies in politics, do you think that you run the risk of becoming a hypocrite? Where do you draw the line between interests of the people and serving your own interests?
Right.
I think that one is a difficult question. I will answer it as we tackle, starting from the last question conversation that we were having. I talked about regionalization of the country to make services reach people faster than it is right now. And I was speaking of probably reverting back to the Majimbo system, where we can have a state and counties within the state. And then we can still have county operations. And I'll give an example of Narok as a county within Rift Valley State. Narok has the following kind of revenues. They have revenue in tourism, they collect revenue in wheat farming, hides and skins, meat, and also the water catchment. It's a water catchment environment. Now, if Narok can collect their revenue, the best they can do in our system, or what they will do if we agree, is that they will have to budget on what they have collected. And then they will have to prioritize the needs of the people of Narok from the county level, so that they can look at schools, they can look at hospitals, infrastructure, and apportion part of the money that has been collected at the county level. Then they can now vote for how much will be taken to the state level to run what we call state instrumentalities, and I will explain that later on. Now, the State Assembly in Nakuru, for example, probably with the Chief Minister for Rift Valley or the Prime Minister of Rift Valley, will now sit down and say, okay, we have gotten resources to run what we have in our state. What are we going to do to maintain the state pegged on the resources? What I'm talking about is accountability to the source of revenue, where it will come from, trickling down from the bottom, going into the state. And then now the state will have to debate what they have gotten, come up with their fiscal policy, and then appropriate monies for the national government, which will have its seat of power wherever it will be. Now it's from there that revenue collection can now, and taxing can now come into 3- or 4-tier system. The county collection revenue and taxation, the state collection of revenue and taxation, and then the national government. Now, what will be the role of the national government in this particular perspective? And what will be the interstate revenue collection policy? For example, if you have national instrumentalities, what I call infrastructural instrumentalities passing from one state to the other, then we shall have state collection revenue. If there's a road passing in Nakuru or the state of Rift Valley going to Western, then they will have to collect revenues from whoever will be passing there for purposes of boosting up the economy. Then we shall have the state police colleges, the state police health, environment, and route review. That in itself will actually dictate what happens as opposed to what's going on, as the governor of Wajackoyah has said, that the state of the controller
budget.
Yeah. Now that is that side. What about other sources of revenue? When you go to hemp production, which I was also misunderstood, the world now is turning into hemp economy. If you look at Toronto Stock Exchange in Canada and Chicago Stock Exchange, you'll find out that 50 kgs of hemp is $302 million US dollars. Now, if we can have controlled organization, regulated, and growth of marijuana, let me put that language instead of hemp, then that itself will generate a lot of revenues so that it will actually subsidize reliance and issue of begging.
Prof, I want to come back to that thread in just a bit, but before we lose it, I wanted to ask, what's so wrong with devolution as it currently stands that you're thinking of regionalization? And I don't mean the implementation of devolution, I mean the spirit of devolution as it is in our constitution. What's so bad about it that we need to regionalize and do this other form of government?
First of all, look at the point of birth of that devolution. Who are the characters involved in devolution? what was the aims and objections of those people who are actually parading the theme of devolution? What was their political interest in that? And were the masses educated enough to know what devolution was? There was the banana
and the orange.
And both teams were fighting. Let's start from that particular point. Let's look at a committee of experts that went outside to pick up views to bring in this country. That's where things went wrong. Why would we have 49 counties when we know that we don't have resources to maintain them? We could have planned, first of all, on industrialization, logistics in the country, so that these things will gradually fall in. Now, you can see that they have created them, but they have created a monster. Look at the level of corruption we have in county governments. Look at how governors are becoming very rich, and they're having this opulence of being a leader of a county. That has not come in yet. And that's why I'm like, no.
But that's not in the structure, Gav.
It may not be in the structure, but it has produced a monster where you have seen the complaint coming from Wajir and what's going on.
Which is also possible if we go the federalist way, the same one that you're proposing. We may have this person who is the head of state of Rift Valley, head of state of West, and head of state of the Coast, who also becomes the same thing that you're seeing. Because of the nature of our politics, they become demigods in their regions. And then below that, you're still creating counties. So you're creating a three-tier level where there's a national level, there's a federal state, and then there's a county under the state.
At least there will be a lot of
still increasing.
There will still be a lot of conversation. People are enlightening themselves. People are dying, others are being born, new ideas are coming in. You can see what Gen Z philosophy is. It can work. For example, now if we empower counties with this so-called CDF, from that particular conversation we have, we remove the monies from members of parliament because they are supposed to oversight, not to have the money and then build schools and sheds and name them Professor Wajackoyah's CDF or something like that, individualization of the government money, which is taxpayers' money. If we actually tripled money back so that the counties can budget and then do a methodical kind of apply the methodical kind of approach on spending by debating from down here and involving people. And what I meant was, what I didn't want to go in is that we shall also have a system whereby the borders have their own representative in the county assembly. People who boil tea have their own representative in the county assembly. Mamambogas have also their own representative, so that we have equitable discussion on distribution of resources. Then we are talking.
Everybody's voice is heard.
But yeah, I'm still not hearing what's wrong with devolution in spirit. Not in our execution.
It is good, but then if you look at where it has worked, like in India, the current Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, was a chaiwala. He used to sell tea. People liked his tea, and they elected him to represent the people of that region, the tea makers of that place, into the local assembly. And when he went there, he advocated for the people who are making tea. He said water is very expensive, tea leaves are very expensive, the cups are very expensive, we need sanitary in that environment. And he actually improved that. That's when they actually elected him to another tier.
Okay, there's a very quick summary because I want to, you had already started talking about, I think you were highlighting some of the briefs in the manifesto. Yes. I'm picking from 2022, but Prof, let me just quickly read because I want to come back and ask, number one, what will be different going forward? Number two, how does this measure up to the priority areas that are ailing Kenyans? So Roots Party of Kenya 2022 manifesto summary, I'll just read the taglines. Number one, legalization and commercialization of marijuana. I think you'd already started speaking about that. Number two, death penalty for corruption. Number three, snake farming for venom export, which has come up in the news cycle a fair bit this year. Number four, a 4-day work week. Number five, suspension of the constitution in brackets initially, because it further said upon taking office, Root Party suggests suspending the constitution to restructure governance. And number six, emphasis on African cultural identity, promoting and embracing African heritage and traditional governance systems. So you were already talking about commercialization, the opportunity in the commercialization of marijuana. We've read some of the others. So even as you finished telling us about the opportunities that maybe Kenyans aren't seeing, I'm curious as to what still holds here, and is it in tandem with what Kenyans need? Is it matching that? Because we've talked about the pain points of Kenyans, unemployment, insecurity. Does the manifesto respond to that. But first, you can complete what you were saying about marijuana, then go into some of this.
Yeah, if you look at marijuana economy today, you look at countries that have been a success story. Taiwan today has done away with the cement construction. They're now applying fiber in every kind of manufacturing. They're doing road construction, steel manufacturing, and food production. If you go to Israel, which is now being bombed today, the main source of economy in Israel today is actually fiber economy. That's why they manufacture their armaments, their arms, heavy weapons. They manufacture tanks, they manufacture ships, and they export arms and ammunition made out of components of fiber. Otherwise, Israel will not stand the heat with the neighbors who are very rich in oil production. Israel also is one of the biggest exporters of mangoes. Those mangoes have ingredients of part of what is in hemp. Hemp is also used for medicinal purposes, prevention of cancer. And India, where it's legal, where it's even smoked, the leaves now, not the hemp itself, India are treating people who have cancer on ingredients of hemp and marijuana. And lastly, if you look at Canada, Canada now are making planes made out of hemp. And the latest one here is the plane that was made a few days ago, this one, which is fully made out of, and probably if you can help me to read.
10 times stronger than steel, the first aircraft made from hemp, manufactured and powered by hemp. And I can see there's, yes, a picture there.
So we'll hemp is the fuel and hemp is the material.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
We'll have a look through that. I do think there's incredible opportunities around marijuana for medicinal use, even for recreational use, honestly. It would require quite a culture shift, but I think we're lagging behind. Uganda is already exporting medical marijuana, so I see it. But why was it such an important part of your manifesto? Because, again, the pain points. When you begin with something like marijuana, when there's a country that's reeling under economic, economic distress, going through an education system that's being beaten, battered, criminal injustice, everything else, but top of line, right? So this could be part of your economic manifesto, but it seemed to take a lot of prominence in your manifesto.
Yeah, because that's the only solution. Look at the borrowing. How much have we borrowed since Ruto came to power and since Uhuru also left power, starting from Uhuru coming to Ruto? We have borrowed trillions and we are not accounting for them. Who is going to be paying for this money? Our children and our grandchildren. So what do we do right now to stage manage that expose? Is by doing something that is radical. The world is now radicalized in terms of marijuana. If you go to Canada, as you have seen, that plane is made out of hemp.
Yes.
If you look at Uganda, Zimbabwe, South Africa, the president of South Africa coming up and saying, come on, we are going the hemp way. The new president of Botswana has come into. What about Tunisia?
Yeah.
Which had oil, but right now, Tunisia hemp production has gone higher than what they get into. And Kenya's situation can be solved.
Culturally, it would take a huge shift. So what happens in the meantime?
Right. I'm not even worried about the huge shift. This is where I was at. I get what you're saying. I thread the fact that we do stand to make quite a bit of money from marijuana export and all of that. Then there's also the issue of, for example, public executions of corrupt police officers. That's speaking to accountability, but that's a more radical way of saying it. Then the marijuana is an economic solution. But that's when you say legalize marijuana, it's more sensational, right? Then there's other things in the manifesto that are solid, but I feel like they're crowded in something.
The sensationalism.
Yes, in the sensationalism. But before we get into that, and I'll say if that was an intentional choice or if it's it just happened, let's speak to Gilbert, who's on the line and wants to ask you a question. Good morning, Gilbert.
I'm good.
Sorry, pardon? Okay, Gilbert, good morning. What's your question for Prof?
Kama ikalia police officer.
Kama?
During this time, was there any abduction like today? Second question, as a career police officer, what step is he taking so that you can not see brutal murdering of young people in this country? That's my two questions.
All right.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Gilbert.
Can I respond?
Yes.
Yes, during Moi's time, it was worse than during Ruto's time. There was abductions, there were killings, there were murders, and it was same status quo that Kibaki erased, and now it has come up with Ruto. Yes, there was.
So back to the issues around your manifesto and how they were, and I think just borrowing up from what Mariam had asked you, was it just, did you go with this as a nice, catchy way of entering into politics and coming up with this catchy one? So yes, marijuana could be a solution, but then you come into this kind of society and you say, let's legalize marijuana, let's export dog meat or whatever, let's do snake farming, let's hang the corrupt. You know, they are all just radical. You're completely going against the grain.
They are not radical.
They're not radical, you've said, but to how they are received by the, it's against everything else that everybody else has had, or what the other your competitors are saying in the political space. Did you strategically use those so that then you emerge as the one guy who has a different message?
It was both strategic and both practical. If you look at what I'm wearing today, though it may look very nasty, if I told you the price...
Not nasty. It's actually such a fresh look.
Nasty about it?
You look good, right?
All this is hemp.
Right.
All this is hemp. This is also hemp. What makes
The
this
watch is hemp.
Yeah,
The rubber.
what makes this watch is 2-in-1. I'm not bragging.
Can I?
This is hemp.
Looks heavy.
And some ingredients in this watch are hemp.
It's
And
heavy.
it's two.
It is quite heavy.
Yeah, it is
Quite heavy.
two watches in one.
Yes.
Number two, if you look at my jacket, you look at this, and probably this
The
shoe.
shoes, yeah. I was about to say sneakers are so fresh.
They're very dope.
But
Yeah.
you can't find out the price. I wouldn't say them on television because they will think I'm bragging.
Okay.
So I'm wearing hemp everywhere.
So it's practical.
The inside
very
is Reebok. Reebok are making hemp.
Yes, but it
Hemp
has
shirts?
hemp ingredients.
Okay.
Adidas, you even see Matawi Banki. They also ingredients of hemp.
So it had that bit. After the election, people did not continue hearing the message that you were preaching before the election. And that will be the question that you ask. But let's first of all take a
Go
caller.
to-
You got a caller?
Yeah, we do. We have Naftali from Baringo. Naftali, good morning. Do you have a question for Professor today?
Good morning. Sasa, kwa nauliza,
Yeah.
unajua Wajackoyah ni public figure.
Yeah.
Sasa nilikuwa atuulizie mambo na SHA juu kwa sababu wanatuwa chini tulipe annually na hatuna pesa annually.
Ya nini?
Umesema ya SHA.
SHA. Kama sasa mimi ni hata labda hivi na niambiwa nilipa 10,000 wapi nanunua unga ama nalipa SHA. Sasa ambie Ruto kwa sababu yeye ni public figure tulipe monthly at least. Alafu tutoshie kwa hiyo crap.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you very much. I addressed that issue in Malava when I went to launch a by-election there. This SHA thing is a mystery, but it can also be done. They should categorize as to which class of group is going to pay that amount. How do you expect an old woman in the village who sells mboga and maybe her income per day is 100 shillings to pay that 10,000? How do you expect a boda rider who has just finished school, is still paying his loans at the university? He has hired that boda so that he can pay the owner, buy fuel, make a profit out of it, and then move on and take care of his family. I think, in my opinion, the SHA thing should be free because of the way it's structured. People are not involved in participation in the creation of the SHA. It's actually an illegality, if I may say so. And you can see there has been a lot of outcry by doctors, by people being killed in the hospital, people dying on the way to hospital, people being refused treatment because they have not actually paid SHA. Hiyo kitu ya SHA, in my opinion, certain category of people should not pay for it, and people should not just pay it for it because it's an illegality, period.
Okay. So
I know the government recently launched a Lipa SHA Pole Pole initiative. It's a communication of it that's still not very clear. Lipasha pole pole. So what is a pole pole?
Yeah.
Does it mean that I don't have to have paid for the whole year before it happens?
And also just a reaction to the fact that it was rolled out too quickly. We've talked about it to no end here. I know that very soon we'll be coming back just to think through what's next for the country. But I think we've been staying on the thread of, yes, this is what was in the manifesto. To your point, you're saying it's not radical, and I think Eric was saying the reception of it was. And you know what? Some of it is really progressive. You talk about a 4-day work week because you're saying it's supposed to enhance productivity, promote mental health, and encourage a balanced lifestyle. You've talked about suspending the Constitution initially in order to restructure governance, including reforming the judiciary, legislature, and executive arms to restore public confidence and sovereignty. And then you've also talked about snake farming for venom export, including a plan to establish snake farms. I'm trying to straddle between the fact that it can sound radical, but it's progressive, and whether there's any inroads into how it can be accepted or implemented in a country which is, I think, used to a certain kind of manifesto, used to addressing certain big issues, health, education, but aren't able to then immediately fly over to saying snake venom, 4-day work week, and reinstating the Constitution. Looks like we're going into a break. Suspending it. We are going to come back and just try and see how we can convince Kenyans, to your point, this isn't radical, this is just what the country needs, this is how it needs it. So when we come back, we'll also hear from a caller, a few of you who've been calling in, and we'll be also hearing from Professor Wajackoyah. How can he speak to the fact that these points in the manifesto are not radical, they'll work for the country. We'll be back, it's coming up to 8:30.
Taxpayers were expecting some tax breaks, corporation tax coming down, PAYE coming down as well, or revision of the tax bands, which are not very progressive. Why have a VAT registration threshold of 5 million shillings and turnover tax threshold of 25 million? It makes sense to bring those two together. Probably the proposal that we had seen in the Finance Bill 2024 to bring it to 8 million. You can see the Finance Bill 2025 has been very heavy in terms of administrative amendments. Tax Laws Amendment Acts last year were also quite heavy on administrative reforms.
Tired of endless scrolling? Say goodbye to the chaos. Introducing the all-new Business Daily website. Experience seamless navigation. Immerse yourself in a world of more videos and more podcasts. Discover more with our enhanced home pages. Engage like never before with our interactive tools. Join us and elevate your reading experience today. Business Daily. More possibilities.
The ladies have grown so much.
It was the whole reason why I came back.
The best race member 2017 in London.
The world record that's defeated her.
Woman of the year 2011.
We can make these players understand how they can put hard work, dedication into the talents that we see they have.
Sport On. Every Monday at 9:35 p.m. The future of talent is calling. Are you ready to answer? Whether you're in HR, recruitment, or a company on the rise, your next great hire is closer than you think. On June 26th and 27th, 2025, join the movers and shapers at the Nation Huawei Leap Job Fair at the University of Nairobi. Meet brilliant minds, discover bold ideas, recruit talent that transforms your business. This is more than a job fair. It's a gateway to innovation, growth, and opportunity. Nation Huawei Leap Job Fair. Unlocking potential and building connections.
Sacco, we are a reflection of you. We are a stable, financially sound institution providing tailor-made services to add value to your life, time, and money. We are guided by your aspiration. We are designed to match your ambition. We are Stima Sacco, a true reflection of you.
Hey, what's up, people? My name is Kevin Karuga, and I'm from Nakuru County, and I'm a budget facilitator. What I'm doing to fix the nation is that I train young people to understand budget processes at the county and national level so that they can speak based on facts and knowledge, and not just hits.
Hello, I'm Evelyn from Nakuru County, a business lady. And what I'm doing to fix the nation is that, one, I'm staying informed with what is going on in my country, attending public participation, and of course, paying taxes.
It's important that you keep sending us your WhatsApp Nation videos because we'd like to hear about you. Tell us your name, where you're from, what is it that you're doing to fix the nation, or is there something that you'd like to see fixed in your neighborhood or in the nation, or is there somebody who is fixing something in the nation? And it's as simple as this to send a video.
You stole my entire script.
Yeah. Really?
You did it word for word.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Down.
It's like, give me back my script.
No, I'm amazed actually. I'm like, hey, yeah. Was that on purpose? Was he just messing with me?
So he's only left for you to say, hi, my name is...
That's what I say every day. Like, you know, you tell us your name, where you're from.
I say he's messing with me. That's what I say every day. He's messing with me.
Give us the example.
Put your phone in landscape mode. Make sure you can see you and a little bit of your background. Say hi, my name is Professor Prof Wajackoyah. I am doing my part in fixing the nation by making sure that we think of how we do politics and governance and rethink, and that we move Kenya into a more accountable, more prosperous nation, and that we're also different in our way of executing manifestos, yeah? Not the same old every day. That's my bit in fixing the nation. Send that video to 0112 500 400. 0112 500 400. Now, Prof, where do we begin?
Some feedback.
Suspension. Okay.
Oh,
I wanted to continue.
Yeah.
A suspension of the Constitution has just been lingering in my mind, but let's get feedback first.
Yeah. Charles Dungo, the Prof's manifesto had solutions that would have taken care of many economic issues bedeviling Kenya. It was greatly misunderstood and judged before proper scrutiny by Kenyans, as is the norm. I'm sure Prof is going to be like, yep, this is what I've been trying to say. You've got bold ideas, Prof, but sometimes it's hard to tell if you're campaigning. Does Prof feel that the votes he garnered in 2022 was a reflection of the number? Oh, that one I think we already said we were asking. So it's about, you've got bold ideas. It was misunderstood. On WhatsApp, there's a few. Somebody here is saying, Prof, as Prof gets to read his manifesto, does Prof read the room that is Kenya? He says people view him as though he's a mad person. As a young person, what is it that you bring different without joining leaders whose vision is lost to Kenyans? So that's just some of the questions. We'll try and pin them to see if we can get through them and come back to Mariam's concern about suspending the Constitution. But we have a caller, Elon or Aaron?
Aaron.
Aaron from London. Awesome. Aaron from London. Good morning. Thank you. Yeah, please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Reverend Harun Gishuke from London, United Kingdom. And I want to say I have been a follower of Professor Wajackoyah for quite some time, and I would say he is a vibe among young people. Most of his thinking, thought system, and the way he sees views, he sees things from a young person's perspective, which is a great thing. So I would want to ask him, at a time like this, critical time, when our country is almost going down the river as we watch, is he willing to stand as a leader and fight for justice? Because again, I understand he comes from a police background, and therefore he understands the way the structure is. We don't wait to get any justice for the extrajudicial killings and all these funny things that are happening. We are not going to get them from the system. So it's only people like him who can stand on the forefront and lead the young people to liberate the nation. Is he willing to stand and put his voice into it? Because then we can have hope in such leaders. That's my question to him.
Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you, Reverend. I know probably we might have met. I also live in London. I practiced in London. I went to school in London. My kids were born and raised in London. I dug graves in Highgate Cemetery. Thank you, my brother. I look for Reverend Macharia in South London. And I'm sure Macharia knows you. And I'll reach you next week when I'm going back to the US to graduate. Thank you, my brother.
So he was asking, I think you've spoken to it. You've talked about the issues that young people are feeling, and obviously we saw how young people led this protest and revolution last year. But I think he's like, what was his point? Are you willing to stand out and speak strongly? Is that what he was alluding to?
I
think that's what
people are seeking leadership and leadership.
And a voice.
Well, I think I cannot say I am, because I'll be claiming credit which I don't deserve. But what the young people are doing is also helping me. It's like we need to work together with the young people. They are already in leadership. And if they can lead me also to where they want to go, so long as we are operating from the same antenna, that is okay. It's not a must that I have to lead. The young people have come up, they have expressed their confidence in reality, and if they feel that we can work as a group, then whoever they choose, I will support.
Okay. Young people, of course, have been very vocal about the kind of leadership they want. If that's not Professor Wajackoyah, are you willing to get behind them?
I'm already on the forefront. I'm already defending them. I've already spoken about Lagat if he's found guilty. And that's why I need the death penalty to be reconstituted, because it's there in China. It's not a big deal. There are people who kill young people should be killed also when they're found guilty.
That segues perfectly into suspension of the Constitution. I think if there's anything we've learned over the last year, it's how badly we need this Constitution and its fidelity to be upheld. So when you put part of your manifesto as suspending the Constitution, I know you can see how that could be an inroad to absolute chaos and tyranny, because that is suspension of the rule of law, basically.
You know, this language of the rule of law, the people's law, the judiciary, what have you, is all myopic. It's an incentive which was left to us by the colonial minds. If you look at the preamble of the Constitution, that preamble is the Constitution. Anything below the Constitution, and I'm speaking as an international constitutional lawyer, is vague, void, and null. The preamble states it has got this, the symbolic phraseology of we, the people. And that's where it stopped. Not we shall do this, devolution. Those things have only to be navigated by an act of parliament for them to be effective. But when it comes to the head of the Constitution, we, the people of Kenya, do solemnly swear to look forward to what we want. We, the people of Kenya, want to choose a people's president. That in itself is a constitutional humanity, where if Professor Kotogendo was alive in his semiotics of languaging of the Constitution, then he would say, and I'm not in a classroom, I wish I was, would say that the people can decide, I being one of them, as George Wajackoyah, that we are going to suspend the Constitution below and then relook into it and see what works for us. Because part of the Constitution that we have as a paper was actually borrowed and brought in the country. That's why they send committees of experts outside the country. Were we not logical enough to sit down and talk about our tradition, to enshrine our traditions in the Constitution?
Why do we require a suspension if we're looking into it?
Yeah,
we can question, but why do we require a suspension?
Look at let's go back again to the preamble. We, the people, do hereby want to chart our way forward and look into what we have already on the table and suspend part of it that does not work for us. The Constitution is so cosmetic, it's pegged on American realism, the British realism, the white mentality realism, pegged on IMF concepts, Bretton Woods concepts. You do this, we shall give you this. You don't do this, we shall not give you this. That is where the source of evil has come on this Constitution. And people don't want to appreciate, oh, it's a paper we were given. It's glorified. Glorifying what? It's just like the version of King James Bible was written by King James, who was gay. People looked at the message, not at the person who wrote the Bible.
You're contradicting yourself, Prof.
No, let me come out.
The preamble says, we the people give ourselves this constitution.
Yes, and at the same time we can say we the people do not want to follow what we have given ourselves and change. But go ahead.
Yeah, but now what I'm saying is a contradiction is when you say that we the people give ourselves our constitution, and then you now start claiming that it was imposed on us by others. It was left to us by others. We have given ourselves the constitution. We participated in writing this constitution. We had conversations around this constitution. We voted for the constitution. Unlike in 1963, where we did not expressly vote for the constitution. There's a difference here.
Very good. In fact, you have raised a very fundamental issue. How many are we in this country?
50+ million.
How many languages do you have in this country?
Many.
Was it translated in those languages so that the poor people could understand what they were getting into? Or was it just them following the politicians with the incentives, with the Kenyan we know?
What do you know?
A person from West Pokot, right in the village, if you go and ask that Pokot person to give you a copy of the Constitution, a person who never went to school, will he give you any? So what I'm trying to say is, was it translated? Were people geared towards it? Were they given enough time to understand what they were being given?
So what is the way forward? There's a conversation around the constitution. It has happened. BBI was also a conversation around the constitution. Parliament right now is thinking about amending some parts of the constitution to introduce. What's the best way to ensure that our constitution continues living?
You have said something that Parliament is considering amending the constitution. That reflects back to what I said. Suspending the constitution. If it was as good as it is, then why amend?
So you're saying there's leeway to amend?
Things can be good and need change, right?
Yes.
I think you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like that's how the saying goes. Again, I'm still stuck on suspending, and I'll draw the thread as I was drawing earlier. A lot of this manifesto is rooted in fundamental things that do seem very clear, very concise, very good, but then they're always enshrined in something sensationalist. Why do we have to suspend the Constitution? If there are bits of it that are not working, why not fix? Why not amend? Why not...
Why are you saying suspend to then amend?
Suspend
parts. It was part of the Constitution.
Yes. And that's what now Parliament is also looking into, I think. And I do agree with my friend, my brother Eric, with what he has said. Yes, these things were written at that particular time. When was the Constitution written? Look at the transitional formats of the American Constitution. 700 and how many years has it been there? And it has been amended only 14 times. Look at what's happening here. You're right in what you're saying, but it's a myopic paper that we need to revisit, all of us, not just me, so that we can see which part works and which part does not work. Do you see us actually practicing what we profess that is the Constitution? Arresting people, for example, arresting people, abducting people and throwing them in jail. Is that part of the Constitution? No. What does the Constitution say? You have to be told reasons why you're being arrested. You have to have a right to counsel. You have to be to be taken to court within 24 hours. Was that justice given to Ojwang? That's why I'm saying some of these things, we need to look at it from continental perspective or probably regional perspective. Because what is in Wajir, what is within the Islamic world may not be acceptable to a simple Turkana person who is in Turkana region. Like now journalists. For example, journalism is a source of communication and information. It's also a tier of government. Are you protected in the Constitution as people who are a cluster, fourth tenet of the three arms of government? No. But in the US, they're protected.
Okay. We have Yegon, as you hold on to that thought, Prof. Yegon from where, Philo?
Kericho.
Oh, Kericho. Yegon, if you can hear us, good morning. Do you have a question for Prof or a comment you'd like to make?
Yeah, good morning, panelists and Mr. Wajackoyah.
Good morning, Yegon.
Yeah, I'm very much interested in what you are advocating, but my question is on him and the structure of the state. You know how our country is. We are poor in keeping laws
What will happen if the people now, instead of using hemp the way you want, they resort to using illegal means?
Okay.
Or the states, how tribal we are, if we create those three structures you have said, how sure are you that we are not going to have all tribal enclaves, and in the event they end up fighting and creating fiefdoms, where will our country be?
All right,
Thank you.
Yegon.
Thank you, Yegon.
Yeah.
Misuse of hemp.
Probably if you can enlighten me, I didn't get him quite well.
He was
what he asked.
He was saying that he's been threading with you in terms of the broad uses of hemp. He thinks that they're critical and they're good, but he's now worried about, on the extreme end, there could be a misuse. I think I heard him even at the end saying arms could be made out of hemp. Like, what happens? How do we guard how and when hemp is used? Essentially was the crux of his question.
Well, thank you very much. Everyone has a right to fair hearing, and it's a nice question. What I would like to enlighten that Kenyan is that arm manufacturing is already ongoing from hemp. So there's nothing that one can say. Canada is manufacturing arms from hemp. China is doing the same. Israel, as I said, is doing the same. So that we are past that. I mean, armaments are being manufactured. And if my brother there was saying that we shall manufacture and then use to kill others, maybe that's what he could have said.
Basically, the issue here is that it doesn't mean that because it will be legalized, you can now make your own in your backyard.
No. We shall have regulations.
That's like you can't just go and grab a piece of steel and start making your own gun.
That's true. It doesn't work that way. At the same time, he's just thinking worst case scenario.
Yeah.
He's looking at what's happening around him. Yeah. Snake venom, and then eventually, I think there's a question you asked, Eric, where you were saying
it's just bringing
the
it
mainstreaming mainstreaming of the manifesto.
Bringing it all back together into, currently, as you've heard, people are yearning for alternative leadership, just ideas of alternative leadership. Where is Wajackoyah's voice in that? But let's go back into starting with the...
Yes.
One of the ideas that you had then was, we start rearing snakes.
Establish a plan to establish snake farms to harvest venom for pharmaceutical use and export, which would diversify the economy and promote scientific innovation. You literally read a story on that this morning.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to...
It's on Taifa Leo.
It's also in the Daily Nation.
Kuna mbuzi kadhaa, kuna nyoka tano.
Yes, walioumwa na nyoka seme ni wengi kutisha. That story is there. Haya, visa vya watu kuumwa na nyoka kaunti ndogo ya Seme vimeongezeka huku wakazi wakiingiwa na wasiwasi. Navyo vituo vya afya vikizidiwa. So idadi ya watu walioumwa na nyoka mwaka uliopita 2023 was 426. Idadi hiyo ilipanda mwaka huu hadi mwaka jana hadi wagonjwa 512. Haya. That's quite a staggering number.
This is just one area. This is just Seme
in
Kisumu County. But we know about snake bites across the country, snake venom globally. It's a big issue.
Yes, thank you very much for revisiting that issue. Snake rearing is not an issue. Snakes are reared in Kenya in many places. If you go to Luo Nyanza, for example, snakes are used for many traditional purposes. So is the Iteso of the Teso County, Teso in Busia. Before I go into that question, let me bring you to the realization of what Roots Party ought to have done had we taken over the power. Traditional snake farming is artistic expression of a myth that has been in a family for it is genuinity in existence. We have a section of human beings in Nyanza and Western, particularly the old people who use snakes for particular purposes. We have old women who keep snakes at home for particular rituals. They wash them, bathe them, give them milk, and it's not a big deal. Those ones to Roots Party, in Roots Party manifesto, we are going to encourage them. In fact, we are going to give them a stipend because that's artistic expression. Now, watakuwa wasanii. If a tourist comes in from America and says, and then goes to Luo Nyanza, for example, ambiwa kwamba kuna mama anakaa kwa ile nyumba, she rears snakes without any kind of scientific protection. Kwenda kuona itakuwa ni pesa, anarusha pesa hapo, mama anapata pesa. That will be one area of source of revenue for the older people to keep them instead of killing them. But when it comes now to issues of the snake itself, snake venom is very, very expensive. I hope you could do research to find out how much a gram is. I think the last time I was doing my campaign, it was $600 or $6,000, if I'm not wrong, just per gram. If properly harvested using scientific method within the regulations that will be stipulated. That 1 gram of venom can cure hundreds of people from snake bites. If you look at Kitui County and Baringo, and I spoke to the governor of Baringo the other day, the governor of Baringo is trying to find out how they can actually build an industry so that they can make Baringo County a snake venom harvesting area so that they can provide employment, export the snake meat probably to countries, East Asian countries that...
And save lives.
Yes, and also export the snake skins to countries like Italy. Those are sources of revenue. A kilo of snake meat in China today, especially tropical snakes, is $1,200 US, just 1 kilo. They use it for...
Which snake?
Tropical snakes.
Which, okay.
Tropical snakes, because they don't have tropical snakes in China. So people here are living in such a way, and they have really traumatized the idea of snake farming. They're saying, oh, in Warogi, what have you.
It's a trauma around snakes.
Yes, I also fear them, but then if they're bringing in sources of revenue, then why not?
And there's controlled ways of doing it.
But tropical snakes, not sort of making bags and shoes from pythons. That's now abuse, right? Is that akin to like poaching?
Pythons are also tropical.
Oh, right. Sorry, my bad. Yeah.
Okay. So
we just controlled it.
Yeah, controlling and putting regulations and what have you.
You're not poaching from the wild.
Right. That's okay. I think
you're
that's
rearing them.
You're farming it.
Snake farming. We have a fellow here in Eastern, in Embakasi. He has a big farm, but he's trying to get a license to farm snakes.
Okay.
If you can farm fish, why not snakes?
I've never spoken this much about snakes.
Right.
I've never thought about it this much. It's a trauma point for me, but I think you've made me
look at the money
it in
side
a different perspective.
and the
bring
benefit
it home
side.
With the question you asked.
I want to come as we come to conclude, Prof. People are thinking and wondering and yearning, where do we get alternative leadership? Even President Ruto is mocking the opposition and saying, you people are just saying Ruto must go, but we're not. Are you telling the people what you want to do? So here's your chance, Prof, that you still want and are interested in being a leader of this country. What is it that you'd bring to the table? And how would you bring the people together so that you can have a crucial mass, a mass that can vote for you?
Difficult question to answer, very difficult indeed. Because the way politics in Kenya has been persecuted is you must have money, you must be a person from a particular family, you must play hereditary politics, and you must be a person of influence. But for me, as I look at it, I have hope. I was just a chokora, a Hare Krishna enthusiast, a grave digger, not a policeman, a grave digger, a security guard, and now an academic 16 law degrees around the world. If I could go through that trajectory and reach where I was, if I could actually come out from 54 men and women who are candidates in the last general election and be among the 4 and being among the top 3, regardless of how many votes I had, I still have hope. One thing I have to tell Kenyans is that unless I become tomorrow, or unless something is endeared on me when I leave this showroom or media house, I've not been involved in any scandal, even though they have tried to involve me by giving me money so that I can be like them. If it is little wealth, I have it. I have the brain. My brain is very wealthy. You cannot quantify how much money I have in this head, because when I speak, the world listens and they pay what they want to pay me. So I would like to encourage people who are on the forefront. And I would also like to tell my brother Gachagua, yes, he did what he did. We all had past mistakes. Nobody is perfect. Gachagua is on the right trajectory, with exceptions. He's regionalizing politics, which is making it more difficult for some of us even to speak with him, to be seen or to speak with him. What he knew when he was in the system, he ought to have told us that particular time, and he ought to have resigned that particular time. Now, this bandwagon of taking Kenyans, speaking on one thing every day, and as much as I may not like Ruto, and of course I don't, but coming out with the physiology of Ruto every morning, tea time, break time, lunch time, even when you're sleeping in your bed with your wife, is Ruto. That is not going to help Kenyans. Let us come out, sit down, and come up with a proper kind of method which we can actually explain to Kenyans. This is what you are going to do for you. But the kind of political rhetoric that we have today is hate, kind of. Just pointing at somebody, but you yourself has not explained what you did when you are in the system that particular time. I also find that to be very difficult.
What would you do? We've gone
so
through
what I will do is,
yes,
I am already talking to Kenyans with the little means that I have, but quietly. I'm not really making noise as I used to, because I realize that making too much noise sometimes does not help. But to those Kenyans who are actually looking at and bringing in materials, we are still very hopeful that if we work as a team, on decided issues, then I'm telling you that if you give me this chance, I'll bring in all the experiences I have, but judge me as I walk. Don't just give me because I'm talking. Talking is cheap and it's easier. Let's go practical, and let's talk and have a conversation. And let's ask probably the media. Today you did me a favor. Who could have heard about me today? So reaching out system I have, and I'm looking forward, whether it will be me or not me, we need to look for a proper agenda of talking, making a conversation, that we stop Ruto from killing people. We stop Ruto with his gymnastics of producing some illiterate people going to address Kenyans. Thank you.
Well, Prof, we thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for having this conversation. We continue having conversations. It's how we fix the nation, one conversation at a time, challenging one another and thinking. Jano, can you see that comment from Plano on YouTube?
Right.
Says, rearing a snake like a dog in the rural areas, washing it, giving it milk. That's weird.
And then he goes, it's pure sorcery. There's a lot of feedback, Prof, but unfortunately we have to transition to our next conversation. But thank you for bringing your perspective. Hapo kwa sorcery. I was there before. Now I'm just trying. I also come here to learn.
Yes.
So I'm trying to shift my perspective. And learn and learn and learn and learn.
Niko na shamba eka 5, niko na nyoka 300, niko na ng'ombe 3,000. Keep it here for more conversations. In the next hour, we host a lawyer who will just teach us about the law and what we need to know, especially going on with what's going on around the country right now. Keep it here for that. Good morning, 9 a.m.